Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I have my dear friend Puneeth with me, who has gone through this phenomenal journey of increasing his Gmat score from 640 to 770, and now off to Puneeth where he will talk about his journey.
Hi guys, Smita has mentioned that many of the prospective applicants are looking for ways to improve their Gmat scores. So in this context, I'm sharing my experience maybe so that it will be helpful for some of them. In my first attempt, I got a Gmat score of 640, verbal 23 and quant 49. And in my second attempt, I got a Gmat score of 770, verbal 43 and quant 51.
Obviously, in an exam, preparing and then getting a score of 640, which is sort of an average score for Gmat, it is somewhat demotivating. How did you gather up the energy and the resources and the courage to attain such a surmounting task of scoring 770? Can you reflect more on the journey?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, all the failures are a little bit disappointing. I was also I sulked for 2-3 days or 4 days, I don't even remember after this examination. But I always kept my eye on the big picture because in order to get admits from colleges like IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Bangalore, you need to have a very good GMAT score. And that is the dream which pushed me through this particular phase. Initially, after the exam, I first tried to identify where I went wrong and I evaluated the improvement areas. Then, based on discussions with multiple friends, colleagues, etc., I chalked out a plan in order to, improve those weak areas. And then I stuck to it, and I maintained some discipline in order to ensure that that particular plan has been completely executed.
So, if I summarize it, it's identifying your weak area, developing a plan across it, and then following that plan with uttermost discipline.
Yeah, nicely.
So, after that, looking at your previous score, what did you analyze? Which were your weak areas?
If I look at my previous score, my weak area was verbal. In verbal, I would say the most weakest area was sentence correction. As you know, verbal has 36 questions and we need to complete it in 62 minutes. So you will barely get 1 minute 40 seconds for a question. So with my reading speed, I felt that in order to do well in verbal, I need to, ace sentence correction. I need to complete the 12 approx questions of sentence correction in 12 minutes so that I would have time for sentence correction and reading comprehension, which is 24 minutes and 24 questions for the remaining 52 minutes, which is around 2.5 minutes per question, right? So, in keeping that in mind, I made up my plan. I worked a lot on my sentence correction. First, I knew that from the foundation I had, I wasn't that good with various rules of sentence correction. So I used multiple resources.
So, first phase was more oriented towards developing a foundation in sentence correction.
Yeah, that was the phase one, if you have to put it. In this phase, I tried to I tried to build on my basics, learn all the rules. In this phase, I utilized resources of eGmat, GMAT Club, and Manhattan. I watched all the videos. I made notes.
So when you are talking about Manhattan guides, is it the sentence correction guide that they have for clarifying all the concepts and all?
Yeah, Manhattan has a package. In that package, I mainly looked at the sentence correction guide. In the sentence correction guide, there are two parts. One part is focused on basics, and one part is for people who are aspiring for 90 plus percentile. So during this phase, I looked at the basics part. I read some 8 to 9 chapters in Manhattan, and during this phase, I tried to ensure that my basics are all covered. Right. Then comes the phase two.
So how long was this phase for?
Somewhere close to 1 month, I would say.
Okay,
Easily.
so you focused majority of your time on developing a good foundation.
Good foundation, exactly. During second phase, I tried to improve my accuracy. In this phase, I started solving various questions. The biggest source is official guide Gmat, and there were questions in eGmat also. I took a subscription from eGmat, especially only on the verbal section. In this During this phase, my main agenda was to identify as many errors as possible and develop a good error log. Right. For example, GMAT in official GMAT questions, I used to spend 1 hour only focusing on 7-8 questions. And in each question there are 4-5 options, and in each option I try to identify each and every error. I mean, in general, in order to eliminate an option, you need only one error. But each of these questions have at least 3 to 4 errors. That's how official Gmat guide books are. So I try to identify each and every error, and this improved my ability to eliminate more and more problems easily. Because as the problems get more complex, the errors are not that easily visible. So you need to have an idea on a lot of errors, right? So during this phase, that was my target. I identified errors, and then I worked on lots and lots of questions, and I tried to improve my accuracy to more than 70%. Even the hard questions also, I tried to maintain an accuracy of around 70 to 75%. Right, and then goes the time phase. As you know, the most important aspect in verbal, at least for me, was time, right? And I targeted 1 minute for each question. So in order to achieve that, I use various techniques. First, in this phase, the chapter which I mentioned was focused for 90 plus percentile people, was very very useful. Whether they gave various methods in order to cut short time, the split method, or just like skimming method, etc., etc.
So it's an additional book from Manhattan SC that aspirants have to buy and practice.
Yeah. So
but you would suggest that first one should go through the foundational course and then look forward to the 90 percentile.
Yes, exactly. As it has been mentioned, even if you target only, if your target is very very high, then you have to go through this book.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, in this post this phase, I was able to complete most of the sentence correction questions within 1 minute with an accuracy of at least 70 to 75%, which was kind of sufficient at least to get a good score. Then post that, parallelly I also practice critical reasoning and reading comprehension. With critical reasoning and reading comprehension, it depends a lot on you. It depends on your reading speed and your ability to analyze and understand the paragraph. For me, I knew that for critical reasoning question, I need to take at least 2 minutes, and for reading comprehension passage, I need to take at least 2 to 3 minutes. So that was the reason why I spent more time to reduce the time problem solving time for sentence correction. Right. For critical reasoning.
So, in short, sentence correction, whichever time that you save there, acted as a buffer for your critical reasoning and reading comprehension.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nicely put.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, coming back to the critical reasoning, there are broadly, in each and every paragraph, you should identify what is given, what is the assumption, what is the conclusion, and based on that conclusion, how to evaluate various options. This particular aspect comes from practices. There are some basic segmentation of various questions, but it's very basic. As long as you are not able to identify assumption or you not link it with conclusion, you would not be able to solve majority of these questions. So for critical reasoning, you just need to practice and practice. Same goes to reading comprehension also. In reading comprehension, there are some brief tips. Each and every paragraph, starting and ending, you should have a good idea in order to evaluate what is there inside the paragraph. So
that is also related to this reading technique called skimming. That how you should learn how to skim through the entire reading material that you have to get an overall idea of what the passage is like.
Exactly, that's what we even use over here.
We use over here in case studies also.
Case studies, exactly. Yeah, the same technique I used over there in order to identify what is there in which paragraph. So you not have to read a paragraph very intently. You should just understand what is there where. And once you look at the question, you should again come back and understand where to look for it. That was the strategy.
Otherwise, a lot of people tend to waste time in just reading the passage again and again, keeping their focus very intact during the entire time. And this is a tip that comes in very useful, particularly in the last passage, because it comes during the end of the entire verbal section, and at that time your mind starts flying away somewhere else. It's very difficult to keep your focus intact during that time.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a strategy I adopted for reading comprehension. And with reading comprehension, you should also be careful not to overanalyze stuff sometimes. So you just need to, after reading a paragraph, you should just take a brief 10-second or a 5-second pause and understand what is there in the paragraph, and then move on to the next paragraph. Right. And with verbal, most important thing is that if you do well in first 10 or 15 questions, there is a high probability that you will get a good score. Right. If your initial questions are wrong, then there is a very difficult chance to get to back to a very good.
That applies to all the sections and GMAT.
Yeah, of course.
It's an adaptive.
Yeah, it's an adaptive test, so you should always be on your toes.
That's the main difference between CAT and GMAT that a lot of people miss out on. So thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, exactly. So I would advise you guys to spend a little bit more time on initial questions and try to and ensure that these questions are correct rather than on later questions. Don't worry too much about time in the beginning, right? That's the time management skill you develop only by practice. You should practice lots and lots of mock tests in order to get this kind of understanding.
So if I can get a rough estimate of how many mock tests did you give?
Okay. I gave a lot of mock tests. I would say around 8 OG. I mean, I bought additional tests from official Gmat. So
I also did the same.
yeah, I bought 4 additional tests. I gave 2 or 3 additional tests for Manhattan also. All in all, I mean, in OG tests, you can even give twice or thrice as the questions change.
Actually, OG tests are more, not OG tests, the tests that we buy from MBA.com, they are much more relevant compared to what is being asked in the actual GMAT compared to Manhattan test and any other test. That's what I felt. What is your opinion on that?
100%, I agree with you 100%. That's the most accurate test. Most of the other tests try to replicate them, but with only limited amount of success, I would say. That would just give a rough idea, but OG is the exact thing. And I even followed some of the other techniques also. I mean, before giving the exam, at least 15 to 20 days before giving the exam, I only did OG questions. I didn't touch questions from any other sources.
Because it reflects the question that is being asked on the exams more closely compared to all the other resources.
Exactly. I even bought additional questions from MBA.com, which helped me to get the exact perspective.
So, additional questions or additional tests?
Additional questions.
Oh, they are also available.
They are also available for verbal as well as for quant. I bought additional questions, and I did some 10 to 20 questions every day before going to the till the day of the exam at least. Even the mock tests also planned in such a way that the times are in line with the main exam time. I gave my slot was from 8:30 to 11:30 or something like that. So every Saturday at 8:30 to 11:30, I gave a mock test.
So that's the same thing that I also did. Although I didn't score as high as you, but I had followed the same practice. My exam was at 11, and every Saturday I used to give an exam at 11. So that my mind and body is used to that kind of routine, sitting for those 4 hours, being very focused during that time. So we did cover your journey and the stark difference that it created in your verbal score, but you also improved your quant score by 2 points and got 51 in quants, which is a perfect score for quant. So can you reflect a bit on that as well?
With quant, I just practiced lots of questions. As I mentioned, I got additional questions for quant also from official Gmat, and I just I come from an engineering background, so I was kind of well versed with some of these questions. So I didn't spend a lot of time on it, to be honest. Again, it depends on person to person. For me, my weakness I felt was verbal, since my foundations, as I mentioned, were not that strong.
So that's again is a very great tip that aspirants need to focus on their weak areas rather than going through all the sections that are available. Because if you are preparing in a limited amount of time and you really want to nail the GMAT, then your score, a drastic difference can be created just by focusing on your weak areas.
Yeah, exactly. Nicely.
Now, Puneeth has shared his entire journey, and there are a lot of tips and tricks that can help you strategize your GMAT journey from here and now. But I would like to take this moment to acknowledge that maybe during your first, second, or third attempt, you might not get a great score, but still there is hope. Puneeth is a great example of how he achieved a tremendous difference in his GMAT score, and that's what I want to highlight right now. And Puneeth, do you have any additional tip for any aspirants who didn't do that well in GMAT during their first attempt?
Yeah, I would just say, try to understand where you are going wrong, introspect, focus on these areas, and come out with a good plan so that you can work on it better. So based on this, I think you'll be easily able to get good scores.
And aside from Puneeth, there are a lot of examples on Beat the GMAT Club where people did amazingly well in their second attempt, third attempt, or fourth attempt. So don't be demotivated if you didn't score that well during your first attempt. It is more of an inward looking approach, where you have to look at where you went wrong, where you didn't devote that much time, how much more practice can you put in. And as Puneeth rightly pointed out during the start of the video, that focus on the larger goal. Why do you want to get scored well in GMAT? What is the dream that you have? And when you have that in your mind, obviously you are going to put in a lot more effort, and the journey somewhat becomes easier because you are thinking about your dream and the bigger picture. All in all, at this conclusion, I would like to end the video. And if you have any questions for Puneeth, please mention it in the comment, and I will definitely rope him in so that he helps out. Thanks, guys.
Bye.